My question for you is this. This relates to the Sting segment. This relates to this segment. It relates to the Shaq segment. I mentioned at the start of the show that this was one of the most heavily hyped episodes of Dynamite in some time. We will find out in a couple of hours whether it paid off and it got over 1 million viewers. I mean, again, it's going to be old news by the time this episode comes out because we'll already know by that point. They hyped this up to be a major show, as they should have, coming off of the buzz from last week. I was very excited for Dynamite, so I watched the first, blah, blah, blah. Let me ask you this, though. What we saw on this show between all three of those segments, that specifically the Sting, Shaq, and Omega stuff, obviously you and I will continue to watch. Everyone else, though, like for new viewers, oh my God, Sting's going to be on the show. Do you think this stuff was compelling enough to make them want to continue to tune in? Because I feel like they just won't sustain any bump that they get today in the ratings. I don't think will be sustained at all coming off. I just don't think this was as hot of a follow-up show as it probably should have been.
No, I completely agree. I said it a little earlier on. I think when you mentioned it earlier, saying like, do you think they'll push 1 million views? I said maybe this week. So I think they hyped it up a lot, and like I said, they have Omega, who's pretty big. Shaq obviously is a fucking well-known basketball player, like one of the best known in the world. And then you had the Sting come back. So I mean, that you always with that kind of stuff, you'll always get that audience back just a little bit. Like when they have Goldberg back, they'll pull some viewers just to see what's going on. But what happened last night, and the way that they kind of followed up these big moments or big talking points, I just felt like all three of them felt completely flat. Like you said, we'll be watching it, but I just don't think if someone's like, "Oh, Sting's back," and they saw what happened last night, they're not going to be like, "Oh, like there's nothing like
exactly."
Nothing was actually said that like makes you want to watch it again. It's just like him, like, "Oh, I'm not coming for you, big fella," and like they kind of teased him and Darby. But like that was it, and then like he was more worried about grab assing with Tony than actually doing anything of substance. So.
Grab ass.
Like people are like, oh, I thought Shaq was great. I mean, he didn't really do much. He just kind of hyped the Jade and Brandy match.
Yeah.
I just they've done this a lot too. I feel like every time they have a big moment or something big happening, I feel like they just never follow up on it correctly. Like the Pac stuff, like Pac come back, oh my God, and then like the next week he like beat like fucking 20 minutes to beat the Blade or Butcher, and then he's not even on TV anymore. So
that's what I'm saying, dude. I think so. The problem isn't they hyped it well enough in advance. The problem is the follow-up. We talk about this all the time with WWE. Can they sustain that excitement and carry you on to the next week? I'm not saying they're going to announce Sting versus Darby Allin next week on the show, but like I don't have the card in front of me. When they were running down the card for next week, They run down the card every week for next week, which I love. I think that's a great idea. And honestly, I think that's a big reason why a lot of people tune into Dynamite over NXT, because NXT, they either announce matches hours in advance on fucking Twitter, or they just don't announce anything at all, which I think is a problem. And WWE is notorious for that. AEW, they announce everything a week in advance. They did that here. I don't know if you saw it, but I'm looking at the card for next week, and I'm like, I'm watching NXT next week first. I mean, they had fucking... What was it? Oh, God. I mean, I know we the 14-man tag team match, that wasn't even announced until after the show, with like Inner Circle versus all these losers from Dark for the most part. I like the Acclaimed in SCU, but I think that's the only match I can remember that I'm like, oh, man, I got to watch that. Like, they were doing a lot of random shit. Like, I mean, can you look up the card for next week? I don't know where to find it, but like, they announced a bunch of random stuff. Like last week when they announced Dustin Rhodes versus Preston Vance for this week, I'm like, dude, okay, listen, I know you like advertising everything in advance. You don't need to advertise that because who gives a fuck? Like, really, who cares? Oh, I know they announced Hangman and Dark Order versus the Hardy Party or whatever it is. I don't know. I just don't care, you know? So
yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to look up the card. I'm trying to see. I mean, I know they did definitely tease stuff. I mean, like you said, after a show that they're supposed to pipe, like they're pumping up, I just don't think next week's card's gonna, like, as a person, you're just gonna be like, oh my God, I gotta see it. Okay, what the fuck? It says show preview for next week, but I have nothing on there. But no, I remember they said the Hardy Party stuff. What else did they say? Let's see if I jump on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to AEW's Twitter real quick. It was just matches that I'm like, I mean, like I said, I'm gonna watch NXT next week. I just don't really care that much.
14-man tag, you said.
What else did they announce? They didn't announce a Sting appearance. They just said like Moxley wasn't advertised. It wasn't anything major. Let's put it that way. Anything major that I really give a shit about.
I don't see anything. I mean, I'm doing a quick look. I don't see anything on the Twitter, but they definitely hyped. Oh, no, that was the last night. I was going to say, yeah, 2 and the Young Bucks. That was last night. Yeah, I mean, I know for a fact they definitely teased stuff, but I just don't remember what it was.
Yeah, I don't know. So it's just they should have advertised more or just more exciting stuff, because I'm very interested to see what the ratings are today, and more importantly next week. Because I think like last week, for example, they have a great show and then they hype up all this stuff for next week. Perfect. Can they sustain it for more than a week or two? That's the question. I don't think they'll be able to, but I don't know. I thought this was a mixed bag of a show.